Join Clark Lunt and David Shaw for the Burn Your Boats Timely 10, where they share insights on the latest real estate investing trends, market conditions, and statistics. Stay updated on the industry with these expert hosts and learn how to create wealth through smart investments.
Hello there, and welcome to Clark and David's Timely 10. It's a concept that we'd like to introduce to our listeners, whereby our weekly podcast is going to get into meaty topics where we walk away with the conclusion and a burn your boats moment. Our Timely 10, we wanted it to be we want to have the flexibility and the freedom to talk about media and things that are in the current zeitgeist, the thing, items and concerns that might be in the news, that we don't want to do a whole episode on, but it's something that we just think is, less an evergreen concept and more just here's our thoughts on a news article. So it's something that we feel that might be useful. It's going to be 10, 15 minutes long, no more than that. And so with that being said, Clark has found an article this week that he'd like to have a discussion about, and so he's going to lay it all out to you, something that he thinks is pertinent, something that we could leave a 10-minute nugget. If you're listening to this and you are a millennial, I think you'll get a little bit of a kick out of this. You'll either learn something or you might think about something. So Clark, take it away. What has caught your attention this week in the media? What you think is grinding your gears?
What's grinding my gears? So here's what's grinding my gears, and this is something that hits home to me. I'm talking to you, it's late February, early March, okay? I saw this article 1 week ago, okay, February 22nd, in businessinsider.com. It showed up on my Instagram feed. They have like 4.6 million followers. So they've been around, they have a profile that obviously a lot of people follow, and they must have good content. So the title of the article was Millennials Are Being Priced Out of Affordable Housing. And Business Insider is not the first one to have this topic, right? And so it makes me frustrating because of the fact that they talk about this, and it's just like you read this and you're like, affordable housing is no more. So if you're a millennial, give up because it's okay, right? So they actually talked to this TikTok creator. She's a millennial. She lived in like a bougie part of downtown Boston in a really nice area, and they kind of highlighted her. They gave an example where she moved in 2021 to her studio apartment, $2,600 a month rent. Fast forward 3 years later, she now has she's being offered $3,444 rent, so an $800 increase for the same apartment. I'm sure they didn't upgrade any of the amenities or anything like that, and she was just complaining, and it went viral. It got a ton of views. They talked about another person in Savannah, Georgia. Obviously the costs are a lot lower. Her rent from $1,300 to $1,800. Okay, so the gist, right, is how can people afford such aggressive rent hikes in this area, right? And it's a bit of fear mongering because they can pick and choose who they want to interview, right? So with that being said, it struck something inside of me that kind of pissed me off a little bit. But David, before I get to what I think, I've laid out the article, the topic. What are your thoughts on this in terms of how do you feel about affordable housing, millennials, the media kind of presenting this to the masses?
Well, we want to be fair to millennials and note right off the bat that 52% of millennials are homeowners. So, if you're a millennial and you're on the homeowner side of millennials, well, fair play to you. You're a homeowner, and so you're not really subjected to dramatic rent increases. And this is a cautionary tale to any renter at any time. Rents will always increase when fixed rate mortgages stay stable. Your insurance might go up, but your fixed cost won't. And so let me just be clear. Since time immemorial, it's always been expensive for people to rent and to buy. It wasn't, super easy in the 70s or super easy in the 80s. Go talk to your mom who was buying in the 50s and 60s. Go talk to your grandparents. And things have changed, and things always change. They might say, well, interest rates were lower or interest rates were higher at the time, or prices were lower or prices were higher. But at the end of the day, one earner could go out and earn money and keep a family of four afloat, right? So people from the millennial generation might throw that at you. Well, back then, things were very, very different as well. Cost of a TV was 10 times what a TV is now. When I was a kid, my parents and everyone around me rented their TV. They rented their video player, if you remember that correctly as well. And so just real quick, it's always difficult. However, these examples that you are outlining, what this is about, Clark, is there is sacrifice to be made. I live in downtown St. Petersburg. They are building maybe 30 or 40 luxury apartment buildings right now. And guess who's in them? I was over in Water Street, over in Tampa, over by where you are, Clark, last week. And guess who was there? Young, 25 to 35-year-old millennials paying $3,000 and $4,000 a month in rent. If you can afford that, that's great. If you could afford it, that's great. But don't get into the media and start complaining when your rent goes up, because the bottom line is that there's a huge cohort of your generation that are sharing sharing lower priced homes. You don't need to live in a luxury A-class property where you can walk down to the nearest Whole Foods and have a swimming pool downstairs and have a pool party every Saturday, right? So don't complain if that's the lifestyle that you've chosen. In my view, you could equally hop on a train, hop on a bus, hop on a motorbike and go 2-3 miles out, and you'll probably get rent for $1,200 that you can share with a friend of yours. But you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. You don't want to save there, And quite frankly, the people who do own their own homes and the people that have built up rental portfolios, they've made these sacrifices. They haven't the nicest furniture in their homes when they buy it. They didn't buy the nicest home in the neighborhood when they bought it. They deferred a lot of gratification. They just bought what they could afford. My parents' generation, I remember them telling me about when they bought the house that they live in, that they didn't have furniture. And it took them several years to get furniture. That used to be the way it was. And my parents are, the high-end professionals, but they were both professionals. And so, my takeaway is that, this concept where there's a whole generation who are comfortable in the fact that it's somebody else's fault, that they're externalizing blame for the fact that they want to live downtown in an A-class location, in an A-class building. There are a lot of other options out there, and the mindset where you're going to be around in 5 years and 10 years and 15 years time, and thinking to the person you want to be in 5 years or 10 years or 15 years. Do you want to own your own home? Do you want to own your own assets? Do you want to have other assets? If you're blowing all your money on $3,200 of rent a month, I don't have and you can't afford it. I can't say that I'm crying, tears here. I think there are a lot of other options, and I think to throw your hands up in the air and just say, I can't afford it, I can barely afford groceries. Maybe you want to reconsider the kind of lifestyle that you've become accustomed to, because there's a whole generation of people who are filling these I've always scratching my head, who's paying these rents? I own B and C class rentals half a mile from these A-class properties, and my rentals, they're really nice, they're really clean, they've got great amenities. They're a 5-minute walk from the A-class stuff, but they're literally 50% discount, and they're lovely. But why don't you just walk 5 minutes and get somewhere? That my 10 cents is that they're, these kind of articles are probably a bit of clickbait, and Clark. But if you are a millennial and you are listening to this, very much be aware that there are a lot of different options out there, and the generation who came before you that are homeowners and that are landlords and that have built up portfolios, they've usually deferred a lot of this gratification. I personally have never lived in a luxury apartment downtown. Have you, Clark?
I have. So I'm on the opposite side. However, I didn't live in that bougie apartment when I was 24 years old, complaining about rent. I mean, if I tried to fathom paying $3,500 a month rent, in when I was 24, I would laugh at you. I'm like, what are you even talking about? That's not where I'm going to live. That's not where I can afford. It doesn't make financially good sense. I'm still trying to build my career and build my salary. So I do now, and I have for the last probably 4 or 5 years. But I'm 40 years old, and you know, I had to work my tail off to get to that point. And I had to do a lot of sacrificing, like you said, living my first decade out of college, where I was living in decent B class housing, and I would never have thought to live in some bougie place at 25 years old if I wanted to get ahead. If I don't care about getting ahead and I just want to break even every month, then so be it. But then if you're listening to this podcast, you probably aren't that person. So with that being said, so David, did you have anything else that you want to follow up on,
Well, I
to
do.
finish off?
If if somebody's paying $3,400 a month in rent for a class apartment, just simply do this. So I want to give you something actionable. Go on Zillow and look at, you know, single family homes or, small apartments, in and around, or small single family homes. So 6, 7, 800 square foot homes. And halfway down Zillow, you'll see what your monthly payment is. It's literally, Zillow gives you that information. You could put, like, let's say on a $250,000 home or a $300,000 home, you can put down, let's say, 2%, 3% with an FHA. So save up 10 grand. Okay. Go look at what your monthly payment is. It's right there on Zillow. And if you're paying $3,200 a month, you might very quickly see that there's a lot of houses and a lot of buildings around you where you can buy a smaller space, right? It's not as bougie, but you can buy somewhere where your monthly payment is $2,500 a month. And then you might have some slightly extra expenses, but now you're on the real estate market, for better for worse. You have a roof over your head, you own an asset, your rent's not going to increase next month. And so, when this young lady is looking at a rent increase of 34 to, from, to $3,400 a month, I agree. I'd be horrified. But the bottom line is I wouldn't be angry. I would just take action. And the action I would take is I would very strongly consider to be, that is the line in the sand. That's the declaration of war. From there on out, I'm going to become a homeowner because I'm never going to let that happen to me again. And that's action taking. That's what this podcast is about. And so if you are reading articles where they're millennials or anyone else trying to externalize blame, or trying to blame the government, or blame the market, or blame the cost of debt, or blame greedy landlords, don't do that. Take ownership. Nobody's to blame. Nobody's going to bail you out. Bottom line is, lower your standards. Look at a cheaper home. Look at the monthly the monthly rate is. Understand that there's a lot of government insured programs out there to get you into a house. Don't blame people. That would be my takeaway, Clark.
Okay, cool. And I love everything about that. I think the main thing that I heard is that you're gonna have to make some sacrifices. It's that simple. If you're trying to keep up with the Joneses at 27 and live in the high rise downtown, fair be it. Just know that you're every month that goes by and you make that rent payment, you are stopping yourself from like compounding your wealth, right? Each time. So what I want to do is give you a couple actionable steps as well, because this is near and dear to my heart. Number one is that if you're listening to this and you're in this position and you're a millennial, which is defined kind of loosely by Google as 27 to like 42 or 43. So if you're in that age bracket, nobody feels sorry for you. Okay. So if you're feeling sorry for yourself and you're reading the media and you're saying, oh, no one can afford anything, and rent's too high, and you're not doing anything about it, and you're just saying, well, it is what it is, then you're the only one that's being impacted negatively from it. It's not me, right? So what can you do differently to get out of your own way? Okay. And there's a few things that I'm going to give to you right now. Is number one, you're going to have to stop worrying about, what everyone perceives you as, where maybe if you don't live in the nicest house or the nicest A-class area, then you're going to be perceived maybe differently. You need to get that out of your head, right? And the next thing is I went and I was like, okay, I'm going to go look on the market, and we're in Tampa Bay. So it's easy for us to pull data from the Tampa Bay market. And I said, okay, $250,000 and under, how many properties are just available to go buy today? Okay. There was, and then I found, and there was like 800 or 900, David, in our area of Tampa Bay market. So I was like, okay, let me keep getting this down. So I went and I said, how many 2 bedrooms are there? And there was like 600 and under. And I was like, okay, what about 3 bedrooms? There is 112 listings in the greater Tampa Bay area, 3 bedrooms or more, okay, under 250,000. Okay. So if you say, oh, there's no affordable housing, and maybe you have a spouse and you have a kid, I can go find 112 places right now that are listed at 250K and under. Okay. Now, what does that mean?
What's the payment on a $250,000 mortgage?
Great question. So if on the worst case scenario, 250, because there's plenty that were priced at 200, 180, it was about $2,250, principal, interest, tax, and insurance based on that. So in a market, right, we're in the Tampa Bay market, which isn't the most expensive in the country. It's not San Francisco, it's not Manhattan, but it's also not Indianapolis, Indiana either. So I feel like we're probably on a slightly higher in terms of the price point. There's 112 opportunities to go out and buy something under 250,000. Let's say you put 20% down, which is about 50 grand. So if you have 50 grand right now in savings, okay, and you can afford a $2,250 a month payment, what is stopping you right now? So get a 3 bedroom. And the reason why I didn't do a 2 or a 1 bedroom, because you can get those actually a little bit cheaper, is that if you have a 3 bedroom and you're a millennial, could you have a roommate move in and pay you $1,000 a month? Of course, right? Are there a million different outlets right now to find roommates through Facebook? There's all these. It used to be super shady. When I was doing it in like 2006, 7, 8, it was like Craigslist was the only thing. It was super shady, and it had a very negative stigma. Now there's all these like super safe groups. There's all these apps. There's all these different websites to do it on where they vet you and all these things. There's no excuse. There's plenty of people that want that, right? So if you have 50 grand right now, you can go out and buy a property in the greater Tampa Bay area. You've got 112 opportunities, 43 of them are single family houses, and you can get a roommate. You got a 3 bedroom. That's all I have to say on that, because there are opportunities, but you have to think differently. You have to maybe get a roommate. Yeah, I know it's a little bit of a delayed gratification, maybe a little bit of a sacrifice, but don't tell me that there's no affordable housing.
Right. And two things to say about that. Number one is there's also an FHA 3% down option on $250,000. That's just less than $10,000. Just save up $10,000 and that's your down payment, not 50. And secondly, the article talks about this young lady. She's a TikTok creator. You know what? She could create a couple of viral TikTok videos about the fact that she did get a $3,400 price increase, and then she went out. She bought this property. It's not as nice, a neighborhood. It's not as cool. It's not as hipstery. Shouldn't have the same kind of amenities. But you know, she's living life on her own terms, and you know, she can hop in her car, go to a pool. She can go to a friend's house, go to a pool, go to the beach, go to a pool. You know, there's public pools. There's all sorts of other things around. So you don't need these things. I'd be very, very impressed if she made a TikTok video about her transition from an A-class property to a $250,000 3-bed that she shares with some roommates, and now it costs her nothing at all each month. Now she'd made the transition from paying $3,400 a month to paying $400 a month because her roommates are paying the rest of it. So I'm going to sign off there as well. Timely 10, so let's stay in with it. This is an important topic, everybody. The idea that there are no options out there, it's a fallacy, it's a farce, it's not true. We work in our industry all day, every day.
And don't let the media, become this negative energy on you. Think again, stand up for yourself, and you just got to think outside the box. So with that, we're signing off. Hope you guys enjoyed this, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you for tuning in to the Timely 10. Be sure to click the like button and share, and connect with us on social media. Content in Burn Your Boats podcast is for entertainment purposes only and is not legal or financial advice. Please review our legal disclaimer at burnyourboatswealth.com.